obviously she kills, you know. So
Right.
yeah,
And he who
Yeah,
remains'
but she kills.
device is
He
more
pushes
than
him
just
through.
the sacred timeline. It's a combination of all the timelines. Meanwhile, the TVA that they had been in only
right.
had TemPads that could control the timeline that
One
they were
time,
in.
exactly. Yep.
That's my question there. If that's the case, she pushes him through he before she kills he who remains. So I mean, obviously we don't know much about those temp pads. Does it take like do you go through like some like wormhole thing and it takes a minute for you to pop up because from what I've seen it's pretty instantaneously you go through it you come out the other end but
I think it's just
while
because,
he's
uh,
No,
going
I think it's
through
because he's in charge of it all. So
yeah,
he created the technology to bring all of the timelines together. He figured out how to use Elias's power to do that.
yeah,
So he has like the master tempad that goes to all of the timelines,
yeah.
but he created tempads that for the TVA, which he already admitted was
was
of his
that his temp
creation,
pad though?
that can only go
Yeah,
for
the
like that can
special,
only move through time within one timeline at a
you,
time.
you know, the
I said the
special
word time
temp
too
pad that was
easily.
on his, the special temp pad on his, it kind of looked like a watch on his wrist. Like that's the
Oh
one
yes,
And it
yes,
was
yes.
that
cracked just like the Citadel, the castle he was
the
in.
walls. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense then. That definitely makes sense.
Right. So and that would be interesting. Like if he's now in an alternate universe, then then that becomes very interesting. But it's also fascinating because if he is in an alternate universe, then he presumably is not on that same sacred timeline, or does that have a sacred timeline as well that they are preserving like that? So
Well,
that's where
now
those
that the
questions come
multiverse
from
is
too.
open,
You
I
know what I
don't
mean?
know if the sacred timeline even matters anymore.
Well, but what I'm saying to you is that they're worried about things diverging away from the sacred timeline. So in that alternate universe, they also have a sacred timeline as well, because otherwise, why would the TVA even exist if they didn't?
True,
Right?
but
So
it's
wouldn't
like
you know what I mean?
it's the same idea of okay, so the multiverse has finally kind of bursted open, right? And because he got booted into another universe, I'd imagine it makes it so that transporting yourself from one universe to another becomes a little bit more seamless throughout the MCU. Like I don't know what is going to be shown in these next movies to make it like that. Maybe Spider-Man: No Way Home gives us an introduction to that because of the actors that have been hinted at and whatnot. But I imagine soon enough we're going to see these wormholes. Maybe something happens where the universe starts to collapse onto itself, and then we see these different multiverses kind of pop up, or
Right, or as they
cross
branch, they
over.
collide or something.
Right, right.
Um, but theoretically, it sets up a season two for Loki really well because either theoretically he tries to find obviously he's going to try and find his way back to Sylvie. I think all of us could agree that that's like a
Yeah.
very plausible thing that he's going to want to try to do. Is he going to try and convince this version of Mobius and B-15 that of like the whole storyline of that took place in the timeline he existed in before that one? Or is he just going to try to get out of that one? Or is he going to try to figure out who's in charge in that one and try to take over? Like, there's so many different things that they can move around with within the idea of Loki ending up in a different universe, but still within the.
It
Right. I
seems
mean,
like
it's yeah.
even Mobius and like 100B15, even they don't know who's in charge of the
Yeah.
timeline. So that's what my question. Like, if it's an alternate, let's say timeline, then how come they don't know who's in charge?
Because I'd imagine what happened was for them in their universe, the secret timeline also started to break. So then their
Yeah.
universe is freaking out, saying, "What the hell happened?" And that's why they seemed so freaked out when Loki came to them, because they were also dealing with their own shit of, "Oh my god, the the sacred timeline is ruined. We're gonna have to deal with our boss." And it looks like
Yeah.
that boss release is Kang,
And
right?
when you say they don't know who they work for, the people in dirt throughout the season knew of these like abstract timekeeper people, characters, whatever, but they none of them had ever seen them before. None of them knew what they looked like or who they were or what they did. They just knew of the
Mm.
timekeepers. And that's not much different than Hunter B-15 and Mobius saying he. I mean, they could be referring to Kang and they know that that's his name. They could call him the timekeeper, but know that it's a man and call him he. So just because they say he doesn't mean that we don't know how much they do or do not know out of like 2 sentences.
Well, the other thing that I'll
Exactly.
say, and this is my argument for him being in our actual universe and not an alternate universe. First of all, they both look the same, which we know can still be true. But the other
Yeah.
part of it for me is that if Kang or Immortus or whoever, he who remains, is a fourth dimensional being and does see time as a flat circle, so past, present, and future are all happening simultaneously, he who remains would have gone back at the end of time and created the TVA. If now he who remains gets killed, even if it's at the end of time, that changes the TVA because theoretically he was never there to start the TVA because he's dead. And so then that could change the way the TVA is set up because it would not have been him that set up the TVA. It would have been someone else set up the TVA. So I know that's like really convoluted and kind of crazy,
Yeah.
but theoretically the TVA could have been changed because he who remained was killed. And so then therefore he wasn't the one that started the TVA, it was somebody else. And so, I know that's crazy, but like it just kind of feels like, because remember, like he set up the TVA after the war happened, right? And the war happens, a millennium from now, right? Like
The
in
lesser
in
of
the
two
in
evils.
the in the 31st century, right? So like according to our timeline, it wouldn't have happened for another 1,000 years, that war. Well, now, he who remains is dead, so then is he there to fight in that war? Remember, he says that war is now going to happen again because of the multiverse. So now maybe someone else in this other in our universe now has won that war, and so on and so forth. It's like this whole crazy thing, but the idea is that by killing him, it could have accidentally or whatever reset that TVA to something completely different because it's outside of the actual universe.
So much to unload here, and with this, with all this that happened. One thing we do know is he who remains is dead. There was it was the first portrayal of the alternate version of the character. We know we're going to see a different different version of him in Loki 2. We know we're going to see a different version of him in Quantumania. There's just so many different theories and different scenarios that could happen with this character, with the TVA, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's hard to wrap your head around, and we're trying. I feel like we're trying our best here, but we're just throwing up. What's the saying? Throwing darts
shit
against
at
the
the wall.
dartboard.
Throwing shit
Like,
at
Or
yeah,
spaghetti
like
against the wall and see what sticks.
something, like something. Who knows? And I'm just excited to get more answers here soon. Man, I just can't wait until we get some more movies. What if more TV shows? How is this going to affect at all Hawkeye and Miss Marvel going forward? Like, so many
Hawk.
questions. So many questions with the timeline, with time in itself. It's just it's going to be insane.
Do you guys subscribe to the whole maybe there's a variant of Kang that turns up in Eternals? Because I don't know who the villain would necessarily be for the Eternals. I didn't follow the comics that much. I know the Celestials have been hinted at, obviously, but I think it would be interesting because they obviously have been on Earth for thousands of years, and because King Tut is a variant supposedly of Kang, maybe they do something along the lines of that to introduce the character a little bit more, or at
It
least
does
the
seem
Earth
like they
variant.
travel.
That Yeah, I don't
Oh,
know.
sorry,
I
my bad.
honestly don't. No. I don't know either, to be honest with you, because at least from the trailer, it looks like they spent. It shows the entirety of them kind of going through time. You see the evolution of
Mm.
humanity through their eyes, right? And I wonder if we spend
Yeah, we
some.
get this very. I mean, this Icarus, Gilgamesh. These are like names that are prominent throughout history too. So maybe I don't know. Maybe.
Well, yeah, it certainly could be, right? I mean, you look at it and say, well, they are kind of in different times, in different places as well. And so it could be that different variants of Kang show up in the
It
after
does look like
battle
they're in the
and in
desert
certain.
in one of the trailers.
Yep. Yeah. And so, it's really going to be interesting to see kind of what that has in store. And also, similar to Loki here, it doesn't necessarily always have to be the same character. It doesn't necessarily have to be Jonathan Majors every time. It could be someone in purple and green. Now, the problem with that is that you just introduced this character, right? He's just got introduced, and you're looking at it now, and you're saying, all right, we're going to give you a different variant of him now, but not as the same person. That really kind of throws things off. I think people would then have a hard time buying into that character.
I
You know what I
mean,
mean? Like, that's the only thing about that.
for people who've watched Loki and then will go and see the Eternals and know that not every version, not every variant of a character shows up in the same looking body. I mean, hell, there was an alligator Loki. Like, they're not even all human. So,
Hmm.
I think for the people who come in to the Eternals from watching Loki will maybe understand that if enough about whatever villain is in the film alludes to um, He Who Remains or something about a War of the Multiverse or something to get people to like get that bug in their ear that they know of, and that's kind of what grips them. I think it's definitely possible to link them together. I think it's also kind of fun, the idea of having all these different villains show up throughout films over the next number of years who don't necessarily look alike, but maybe some of them do. And you find out after the fact that they are all the same, they're all Kang in different forms, is a cool concept too. So you don't have to give it right away that they're all the same. Like, that could
Well,
be a big reveal situation.
the Eternals, I think, will be facing a group called the Deviants. So, and the Deviants, doing a little quick research here, while we're discussing things. It looks like they were kind of um, the Celestials had a part with creating them, and some of them have mutations that they've encouraged. So maybe this is the first glimpse of the X-Men we get. I don't know. I'm just kind of reading
Right, like
ahead here
that
and
they could have
figuring
nothing. The
stuff out.
deviants could have nothing to do with Kang. It could just be more of an origin story to introduce the Eternals to us, so we know who the hell they are when they show up later.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, and also the other one, and you know why I was thinking Quantumania was this year, because I knew there's another movie coming out in the spring, and that's Thor: Love and Thunder, and that one introduces Natalie Portman as a female Thor, and then of course that brings up the question of, well, what if she's from an alternate timeline where she is Thor but as a female, right? And so like there's questions like that we don't know answers to. So it is kind of fascinating to think about, like, they have so many different avenues to go down. And now things are so wide open that you can do so much. And then we just don't have answers to any of it yet. And so it's really going to be interesting. And Shang-Chi, like, listen, after Loki, and I think we talked about this, but, and I'll poll the room and see what you guys think. But like, WandaVision, people were talking about Loki being the best after episode 4. And I really enjoyed episode 4, and I really enjoyed episode 5 as well. But I was like, WandaVision was a different level for me still, because WandaVision just was a groundbreaking show, in my opinion. And I know some people didn't like the beginning of it. I thought the beginning of it was unbelievable. Just the way that they did it and the way they made it look like a show from the 60s and 70s. But, I can certainly see why some of the stuff didn't pay off at the end, the boner joke and everything else like that. But, I still thought it was a better show than Loki. After watching the full season of Loki, I don't know how you can watch that series and not say it was the best of the Marvel series. I just, to me, it was the last 3 episodes. Like, the first 3 were very good, but the last 3 were amazing, just absolutely unbelievable. And again, is going to be super important for this show moving forward. And of course, WandaVision was important to, because I think Wanda is going to be a massive character in the MCU, but Loki now moving forward. Now we're talking about, now the multiverse is open, and this kind of sets the stage for everything that happens in Phase 4.
Correct. Gonna
So yeah, but But I don't know if everyone agrees with me
Just
on that
so
one,
much.
but I really do think
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
best property.
I think from start to finish, WandaVision's quality of